Today, Interpol Washington celebrates 100 years of Interpol. Interpol Washington serves as a primary point of contact for law enforcement agencies across the United States to access global resources of Interpol's 195 countries. At the heart of Interpol Washington's success are its partnerships, both domestic and international. These partnerships enable us to share information, collaborate on investigations, and coordinate responses to global crime threats. Domestically, Interpol Washington works closely with federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial law enforcement agencies. By building these relationships, Interpol Washington can leverage its unique expertise and resources to more effectively combat transnational crime and terrorism. Internationally, Interpol Washington works closely with other Interpol National Central Bureaus around the world. These partnerships are vital for information sharing, coordinating investigations, and apprehending criminals who cross international borders. And these partnerships, and plus a century of Interpol's expertise, assist Interpol Washington in its work to support over 18,000 domestic law enforcement agencies to prevent and investigate crime across the world. For 100 years, Interpol has set an incredible example of working together to create a safer world for all.
Please. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I was told that that would need 40 seconds and that I needed to bide some time. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Skip Sigmund. I serve as Senior Advisor to the Director at Interpol Washington, the United States National Central Bureau, and it is my pleasure to greet you here this afternoon. I will also be serving as your Master of Ceremony. In 1962, the great science fiction writer Ray Bradbury published a novel titled Something Wicked This Way Comes. And it's a dark fantasy about two young boys who, on the cusp of their 14th birthday, are targeted by a malevolent force that has entered their small, peaceful Midwestern community. In many respects, the novel provides a powerful metaphor for the world we live in today, one in which each of us are being targeted by the malevolent forces of transnational crime and terrorism, in which transnational threats and threat actors are increasingly present, both physically as well as virtually, in communities of all sizes. And it is one in which we must achieve and maintain an unprecedented level of international law enforcement cooperation if we are to prevail against them. One of the primary keys to this cooperation is the International Criminal Police Organization, or Interpol, of which the United States is a member in good standing, and whose centennial we gather to commemorate today. In order to begin this commemoration, I would like to bring forward Mr. Mark Zimmerman, Deputy Director of Interpol Washington. Mr. Zimmerman was appointed Deputy Director on September 30th, 2021, after serving as Assistant Director for Interpol Washington's Transnational Crime Division. A special agent with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Homeland Security Investigations, Mr. Zimmerman brings decades of experience fighting transnational crime. Beginning his service with HSI in Newark, New Jersey, where he conducted critical national security investigations, Mr. Zimmerman subsequently attained positions of increasing responsibility, including, among many, as Assistant Special Agent in charge of HSI's San Francisco office and HSI Deputy Chief of Staff and Law Enforcement Advisor to the DHS Counterterrorism Coordinator. Please join me in welcoming Deputy Director Mark Zimmerman.
Thank you, Skip. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, great. I didn't have to say it twice. Thank you. Welcome to the Great Hall here at DOJ. And thank you for joining us for this Interpol 100 celebration. Happy birthday. All right, from my perspective, 100 never looked so good. All right, I'm honored to speak with you today about Interpol and what the organization means to law enforcement. The Interpol International Criminal Police Organization has unparalleled reach. With 195 member countries, it is the largest international police organization. Interpol has a hand in nearly all enforcement operations around the world, from border security to fighting transnational crime. Interpol is the one tool there in air, sea, and land domains. Interpol is at the center of so much what happens around the world, but also here in the United States. Through Interpol Washington, the U.S. National Central Bureau assists 18,000 law enforcement agencies to connect with our partners around the world, each one working to make the world a safer place. Interpol Washington provides law enforcement data to decision makers in big cities and in rural locations. Sometimes the single officer in the field remote, hundreds of miles away from one another, but they have Interpol data to help them make a decision. This is all of you here today, federal, state, local law enforcement, working with Interpol Washington and our Interpol international partners from around the world. While we are here to celebrate 100 years of Interpol, we are also here to celebrate 20 years of the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security co-managing Interpol Washington. And I'm proud to stand here with the leaders of both departments to talk about our partnership together for the past 20 years and how we bring our abilities and our authorities from across both departments to bear on the greatest challenges facing us today. Across the Interpol network, we partner to share best practices and leverage expertise in our never-ending quest to bring criminals to justice throughout the world and increase the safety and security of the communities we serve. And I personally look forward to the next 20 years of the partnership between DOJ and DHS. Before we kick off the main part of the festivities today, I want to take a moment to thank the women and men of Interpol Washington, without whom our work is not possible. I also want to thank all of you for being here today and for your never-ending support of Interpol. Working together, we can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now pleased to present the U.S. Marshals Service Pipes and Drums. This ensemble is comprised of active and retired U.S. Marshals who volunteer their time and talents to honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. The pipes and drums serve as the staple of memorial and fundraising events across the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the presentation of the colors by the Prince George's County Police Department Color Guard. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. I should note that this wonderful rendition of our national anthem was sung by Tabitha Massenberg, who is now celebrating her 16th year with the Transportation Security Administration, or TSA, where she currently works in the Office of Intelligence and Analysis. Tabitha is a member of the National Deployment Team and has traveled all over the nation to support transportation security operations. She has also sung at major events, including the National Cherry Blossom Festival, National Police Week, and my particular favorite, Nats baseball games. Privileged not only to have her sing for us today, but for her dedicated service to the United States. I would now like to introduce a playing of the Interpol anthem. There we go. Traditionally played at statutory meetings of the organization, including Interpol's General Assembly and its heads of national National Central Bureaus, coming up in June, by the way. This is an inspiring song of unity and cooperation between law enforcement authorities in all 195 member countries. Now, in a slight change to our program, but a great pleasure nonetheless, it gives me great pleasure to introduce and to receive remarks by the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, Lisa O. Monaco. Mrs. Monaco is the 39th Deputy Attorney General. In that capacity, she is the Department of Justice's second-ranking official and is responsible for overall supervision of the department. As its Chief Operating Officer, the department's litigating and policy components, law enforcement agencies, and 93 U.S. attorneys report to her. Further, she advises and assists the Attorney General in formulating and implementing the department's policies and programs. A veteran of the Department of Justice, Deputy Attorney General Monaco served as a career federal prosecutor, as well as in several leadership positions across the department. She began her Justice Department career as counsel to Attorney General Janet Reno. She then served as an Assistant United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, where she was a member of the Enron Task Force and received the Attorney General's Award for Exceptional Service, the department's highest award. From 2013 to 2017, Deputy Attorney General Monaco was the Homeland Security and Counterterrorism Advisor to the President of the United States. In that role, she coordinated the executive branch's policy and response to a wide range of security issues, including the response to international and domestic terrorist incidents, cyber threats, and natural disasters, and advised the President on all aspects of counterterrorism policy and strategy. In addition, Deputy Attorney General Monaco has served in private practice and taught national security law. She is a graduate of Harvard University and the University of Chicago Law School. Ladies and gentlemen, the Deputy Attorney General of the United States.
Thank you so much, Skip. Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to see this great hall so filled with supporters of Interpol. Thank you, Skip, for that introduction. I am honored to join you all to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the founding of Interpol and 100 years of international law enforcement cooperation. I am also honored to welcome Secretary General Jürgen Stock to the Department of Justice and to thank him for his steadfast leadership of Interpol since 2014, and also for his long and distinguished career in public service. Under his leadership, Interpol has made important advances in at least 3 respects. First, in modernizing its technology and strengthening Interpol's national central bureaus to create a truly global network. It's a network we rely upon every day to locate fugitives, to seek their arrest overseas pursuant to Interpol Red Notices, so that they can be extradited to face justice here. Second, Jürgen has helped make Interpol a critical platform for multilateral coordination to fight terrorism and international and transnational crime. This ranges from creating a biometric database of foreign terrorist fighters to establishing networks for cooperation against environmental crime, human smuggling, narcotics trafficking, cybercrime, and other forms of organized crime. And third, Jürgen has put in place safeguards, including the Notices and Diffusions Task Force, to ensure that Interpol notices are consistent with the Interpol Constitution and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and so that they are not misused by repressive regimes. Jürgen's been busy. Our National Central Bureau sees every day the importance of these advances made by the Secretary General, so I want to acknowledge those here today. Thank you, Jürgen. I also want to pay tribute to the women and men at the National Central Bureau and to its outstanding leader, Mike Hughes. They work around the clock, keeping information essential to apprehending fugitives and to protecting our citizens flowing to and from Interpol. And I know that Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security, John Tien, my friend, who is with us today, and who is our partner in staffing the National Central Bureau, joins me in recognizing the critical importance of this work. We are celebrating another anniversary this year. It's 20 years this year that we established the DOJ and DHS co-management of Interpol Washington. So thank you, John, and to the Department of Homeland Security for being here today and for your partnership. Now, Interpol started in 1923 at the Second International Criminal Police Congress, in which the United States was just one of the 20 countries that participated. The central concept behind Interpol was to establish the means for police in different countries to cooperate on solving crimes, particularly through identification techniques, centralized criminal records, and arrest and extradition procedures. And today, Interpol is 195, soon to be 196 countries strong, and those founding ideas have expanded into myriad avenues for law enforcement cooperation around the globe. In 1923, member countries communicated by mail, telegram, and telephone. Not just a little bit of an advance from carrier pigeon, but not much. Today, though, through dedicated 24/7 web-based communications, police agencies around the world can instantly connect with the click of a mouse, exchanging millions of messages and insights annually. Interpol's notices by US and foreign authorities can often be the fastest and the most effective method of seeking the location and arrest of criminals. Indeed, in many instances, the existence of an Interpol Red Notice may be the precondition for an arrest to be made by another country for the purposes of extradition. In its infancy, Interpol relied on paper and ink fingerprints to aid the identification of criminals. But today, digital fingerprint systems, DNA profiles, facial recognition images all lead to thousands of identifications every year. Through the marriage of law enforcement partnerships and technology, Interpol is making it harder and harder for criminals and terrorists to travel with impunity. Interpol is at the forefront of helping law enforcement worldwide respond to the most urgent public safety and national security challenges. From terrorism, cybercrime, drug cartels, human trafficking, Interpol is increasingly playing an important role in our global security. And as autocratic nations seek to project power, both at home and abroad, I want to applaud Interpol's decision to increase scrutiny of requests, including through the Notices and Diffusions Task Force, to ensure that Interpol isn't misused in furtherance of transnational repression. Interpol provides a vital link between police agencies all around the world, and that global cooperation is evident here today with the presence of so many leaders from across law enforcement at every level. Across my career, from being in AUSA to advising the President on Homeland Security and counterterrorism, to my current role as Deputy Attorney General, I have seen the value and, frankly, the necessity of law enforcement cooperation across borders. And on so many occasions, Interpol has been that critical link. And I'm sure that every law enforcement leader here could share examples of Interpol playing a key part in a critical investigation. Interpol's systems of notices, databases, communications between member countries, all working both quietly behind the scenes and actively in investigations to prevent crimes, disrupt criminal organizations, catch criminals, and protect the public. Through Interpol Washington, the United States is benefiting from these resources and the international cooperation required in today's 21st century challenges that we all have to protect the public. Hundreds of millions of queries of Interpol data every year by U.S. authorities result in countless matches on fugitives, missing persons, and dangerous individuals every single day. To take just one notable example, and one that I think has particular resonance given that we have just observed Police Week and honored our fallen law enforcement heroes. On June 20th, 2013, so nearly 10 years ago, in Bogota, Colombia, drug traffickers murdered DEA agent James Terry Watson. Interpol Washington, quickly after that happened, worked closely with agents and prosecutors to draft and expedite the publication of 7 red notices. This happened within hours, and indeed, in some cases, within minutes of the issuance of arrest warrants for the defendants. The red notices provide the Colombian National Police with the authority they needed to provisionally arrest the subjects, who were all eventually extradited to the United States and successfully prosecuted in the Eastern District of Virginia in 2014. Then Attorney General Eric Holder said at the time that the final convictions in this case represented an important milestone in our effort to achieve justice for a fallen hero. And he noted in particular that this result was made possible through the work of Interpol. So what started as a simple idea to foster communication between police agencies has now grown into a global crime-fighting force that touches every aspect of our mission to keep people safe and to uphold the rule of law. We face ever-evolving threats, from countering nuclear smuggling to tracking down terrorists, from disrupting the latest cyber threat to rescuing children from sex traffickers, from dismantling violent drug cartels to fighting illegal arms trafficking. Over the last 100 years, Interpol has evolved to meet each one of these threats, and in so doing, has made the world a safer place. Congratulations to Interpol on celebrating 100 years.
Thank you, Mrs. Monaco. We understand that you have another scheduled event that you must attend, but we sincerely appreciate the time that you have given us, your continued support of Interpol and Interpol Washington.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you very much. It is now my pleasure to introduce Ms. Jolene Lauria, who serves as the acting Assistant Attorney General for Administration for the U.S. Department of Justice. Ms. Lauria was appointed Acting Assistant Attorney General for Administration on June the 5th of 2022. In this role, she is also the department's Chief Financial Officer and its designated ethics official. Her responsibilities include department-wide financial reporting, the department's annual financial statement, budget formulation and execution, accounting operations, asset forfeiture, fund support, and debt management support. In addition, Ms. Lauria oversees facilities management, procurement, human resources, and planning. She is also a key executive liaison with the Appropriations Subcommittee on Appropriations Matters. Ms. Lauria was the lead executive responsible for the implementation of the Department of Justice's Unified Financial Management System, which consolidated the department's 7 separate financial systems into a single modern financial management system supporting all 40 components and servicing over 16,000 users. Ms. Lauria has been the department's comptroller since 2007. It is important to note that in addition to the fact that she has served so capably in so many roles within the Department of Justice, Ms. Lauria has played an important role in supporting Interpol. To that end, she is the current chair of the Interpol Advisory Group on Financial Matters and was elected to the Interpol Executive Committee, where she served from 2016 until 2019. Please join me in welcoming Jolene Lauria.
Just have to make sure I don't have to put my glasses on. The desire to create lasting transformation in the world is what really drives leaders to achieve. It's why we don't rest at night. It's why we get up each morning, It's why we keep going when we're knocked down. Because we know, in our tireless and sometimes broken hearts, that peace doesn't just happen. As I look out to the many invited guests in the audience, I see so many leaders, individual leaders and leaders of organizations, the kind that won't stop until they achieve lasting transformation in their communities and in their world. The kind my forever friend at the Marshal Service called the warrior breed. I thank him and those like him who cannot be with us today to enjoy the lives and freedoms he and so many of our fallen warriors protected and served. And it's so good to see so many of you in the audience, like real people, to see people here after so many years where we're just remote and on the television. Thank you for coming. Former directors of Interpol and heads of components that I see in the front row, and so many of you in the audience who are honored on this stage just the last couple weeks, because this is where we have our award ceremonies. For those of us who are fortunate to work in this building, many of you have been here for special events like this. And in this hall, it's appropriately titled, the Great Hall of Justice. It's a magnificent place of a historical significance. Please take time when you're here today to enjoy and contemplate the reasons that we are here. We are here today to celebrate 100 years of Interpol because we know through our work here at the Department of Justice, law enforcement, and military organizations across the world, peace doesn't just happen. I would be remiss if I didn't say this is so meaningful to me personally to stand before you on stage with the Secretary General of Interpol and U.S. law enforcement leaders to celebrate this incredible organization. But I do have to tell you one side note. Despite all the accolades and all the achievements of my work that were just read, the one thing that what really made my career, at least my kids, was I did this side work for Interpol. Boy, my mom coolness rose through the ceiling. I have to thank the Secretary General for that because I got through a lot of tumultuous middle school years with that. It's really, truly been a privilege to me for the past 20 years to work with Interpol in the various capacities, small, big, large, it doesn't matter. This is where my heart is. Because peace doesn't just happen, but it is worth fighting for. It's why we're here today, and it's why I'm here on the stage, to celebrate 100 years of this organization. Interpol is on the front lines of the fight for safety and security around the world for ourselves and for our families. Peace is the dream that I had when I was a child, as a second-generation Sicilian immigrant whose family just came here, fleeing the corruption and control of the mafia, just to make a better life. Peace is the dream that I wrote about in poetry and songs when I thought a song could change the world. And peace is the dream I stand for every time I hear our national anthem and pledge allegiance to a country that believes in that dream. And peace is the dream I worked for with no regrets over the last 34 years, literally right down the hall, because I truly believe in the words, if you wish for peace, work for justice. Because we know that peace doesn't just happen. Some people live to enjoy the world, their space, and raise their family, the simple life. I was fortunate to start my life that way, surrounded by a loving family whose daily life was to work from sunup to sundown, only to make sure the next generation achieved more. I was one of the fortunate ones. Some people live to protect the world. They make it their mission to protect everyone's families, the warrior breed on the streets and on the beat, on our borders and in our military, and our investigating and litigating components, those whose job it is to protect and track down people in criminal organizations, those who seek to destroy our world. The Department of Justice and all its amazing missions across 40 components seek to protect the rule of law and keep that country safe so we can enjoy the life that I knew when I was growing up. The way we all deserve to experience life, not just in America, but around the world. The Department of Justice plays a critical role in the operations, management, and oversight of Interpol Washington, so that Interpol can continue to be the world-renowned focal point for international law enforcement. The Department of Justice deeply appreciates the close collaboration we share with the Department of Homeland Security, co-managing Interpol Washington, so we could build a safer world together. You might not know that Congress initially authorized U.S.'s participation in Interpol in 1938. For those of you doing the math here, I was not here then. But I was here following 9/11 when we had to divide up our missions from Department of Justice and create the Department of Homeland Security, and we developed the famous Memorandum of Understanding between Justice and DHS that now operates as the structure for Interpol today. Over the years, for me personally, I've been proud to serve on the AGFM and Interpol's Executive Committee, but more importantly, in my capacity as controller and the Assistant Attorney General for Administration, I found ways to support critical details of DOJ experts to provide legal guidance, and this is where I'm going to stop, because one of the people in this audience who has so proudly served Interpol forever, Mary Rodriguez, please stand up and be recognized. Details like Mary Rodriguez, who participate at Interpol for so many years, working groups of red notices and data protection. Not sure if Kevin Smith is here, but I think he has participated on every working group Interpol has ever had from the USNCB. I've supported them in resources, both the green kind, as well as technical support for Interpol. We participated in working groups, and Secretary General Stock and I persevered through some difficult times, came up with some good solutions to make Interpol where it is today. And I know all of these efforts are not only appreciated by Interpol, but they are necessary to accomplish their mission. Interpol can't do it alone. They can't do it without your support. And I've been happy to be here for all these years to help support critical details to the Interpol. The fight against transnational and criminal organizations, human smuggling, and terrorism requires nothing less than a solid partnership, and we have that here. Today, the fight for peace in our community is different from when I was growing up. The peace destroyers live in places we would never think to look. They exist in the internet, darknet, virtual realities, and alternate currencies that make the hunt more complex and more expensive. Today, I stand before you in celebration because we are all living the dream, the international police-to-police coordination dream that started over 100 years ago by a small group of countries who today now, and I think I heard 195, soon to be 196 member countries, they employ the world's best warriors. 100 years of growth, evolution, 100 years of joint efforts, 100 years of life saved and justice served, and 100 years of building a safer world. So thank you, Interpol, for the peace that you have given to my mind, to my heart, to my family, and to my country. The Department of Justice remains committed to advancing this mission of global security through Interpol Washington as we face those threats together. So thank you for 100 years of law, order, and justice that you bring now to the world and in future generations. Thank you for making peace happen.
Thank you, Jolene. It is now my distinct privilege and pleasure to introduce Mr. John K. Tin, who serves as the Deputy Secretary for Homeland Security. Mr. Tin was sworn in as Deputy Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security on June 24, 2021, becoming the first Asian American to be confirmed in that position. Prior to becoming the Deputy Secretary, Tin spent 10 years serving in senior executive roles in critical infrastructure financial services sector as a managing director of Citigroup. As a chief operating officer, he provided customer service support to tens of millions of customers to include safeguarding their accounts against fraud, data breaches, and other cyber threats. In addition, Deputy Secretary Tin previously served as the National Security Council Senior Director for Afghanistan and Pakistan, 2009 until 2011, as the National Security Council Director for Iraq, 2008 to 2009, and as a White House Fellow in the Office of the United States Trade Representative 1998 to 1999. Deputy Secretary Tin began his career in public service at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, where he was the first Asian American to serve as the first captain and brigade commander, West Point's top-ranked cadet position. For the next 24 years, he served as a U.S. Army combat arms officer, retiring in 2011 at the rank of colonel. He served 3 combat tours, including service as Task Force 237 Armor Battalion Commander in Operation Iraqi Freedom. He and his unit were responsible for securing and stabilizing the Iraqi cities of Tal Afar and Ramadi, with an emphasis on counterinsurgency operations, community partnership, creating rule of law institutions, and training thousands of Iraqi police officers. His military decorations include the Bronze Star Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster, the Combat Action Badge, and the Valorous Unit Award. Please join me in welcoming the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security.
First, I'd like to start off by thanking Lisa Monaco, who, and I thanked her. She told us that she was going to have to head off to another engagement. Lisa and I, as you noted, she said her and I are friends. We're colleagues, we're longtime colleagues. And in particular, in these positions, her as the Deputy Attorney General, me as the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security. We are fortunately paired together in many events like this, and also when we are engaging on the behalf of the United States of America, and really on the behalf of the world many times, especially in things like the G7, where Secretary General Jürgen Stock and I have had a lot of partnerships on. She's a terrific partner, and I would say thank you to the Department of Justice. I'll pick you, Jolene, since you're the CFO, so you probably paid for a lot of anything that's going on here today. And to your great, they're not here, I don't see them, but to the marshals, please pass it on. Whoever is in charge of the marshals here, I know you're there, you're from there, Mike. Where's, oh, there you are, sir. Right, I sat next to you, sir, next to at the FBI memorial service last week. Thanks so much to their terrific pipe and drum corps. They're really amazing, and my hat's off to them. As well, please thank I'll point it to you, to the Prince George's Police Department. The color guard was terrific. And she's getting nervous. I won't call her up here to do another song. But Tabitha, you knew I was going to call you out, particularly coming from our own Transportation Security Administration. This is great. Mary Ellen fist bumped you already. I want to make sure I get a chance to thank you again. You have sang at many events of which I've been fortunate to be present. And I've always, I've run up and I've said hello to you a few times, but I don't want to say thanks again, in particular a great hall like this. So thanks, you do a great job, and you honor us all, not only by your performance in singing our national anthem, but by your 16 years of service to TSA, DHS, in the United States of America. I thank Skip already. You're doing a great job emceeing. You're keeping us on time, and we appreciate that. And also, obviously, Skip, what you do in your day job for Interpol Washington, serving as a senior advisor to Mike over here. I've noted already to our great Secretary General, Jürgen Stock. Jürgen was one of the first folks who I met in one of my first big bilateral meetings back in September 2021. We were in the United Kingdom, where the UK was hosting the G7. And it turned out Jürgen and I shared a lot of experiences, not only in the service of our nations, but really in the service of the world. Jürgen comes from the same state of Hesse that I served in several years, and to include when I commanded my Task Force 237 Armor Battalion when we weren't in Iraq, which was most of the time, but in Gießen, Germany, and Freiburg, Germany. So again, Jürgen, it's great to see you here. It's great to see you on U.S. soil, at least for me. I'll see you again in Japan at minimum over at the G7. I do think it's a great representation of the work Interpol does, obviously internationally, but in partnership, which is what this really is about. Today is the 100th anniversary, but also what Interpol stands for. And as Lisa said, as Jolene says, and I'm sure others will talk about as well, that is the key to success for what Interpol is all about. Mike Hughes, you and I spoke about your next chapter in life. You can tell everybody else about it, maybe during a speech or during the reception. But we need you for another year, and we really have appreciated the last 2 years of service to Interpol Washington, and again I love what Jolene said about peace just doesn't happen, to peace and to law and order throughout not just the United States of America, but the world. So good luck and thanks for another year. Mark, you and I first met. You were probably the 10th person I met in my role. You were just coming on board as the deputy director. And in Mark, I could immediately see not only the smarts as an 1811, but really the right kinds of experiences, Homeland Security investigations agent, and the staying power for when you sign on as the deputy director. As I look around, and I think there's some former directors and deputy directors here from Interpol Washington, you sign on in this great DHS-DOJ partnership, not for 1 year, not for one tour, but for 3 years as a deputy director, 3 years as director. I think it is a great formula. It's not only a great formula for sustainability, for expertise, but for really keeping those relationships glued in the right ways at the right time in the right places. But it's also a representation, Lisa spoke about it, Jolene spoke about it, others will speak about it as well, about the partnership between the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice. The partnership between the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security. Love the fact that Jolene called out and said, 9/11 happens, TSA is born, the Department of Homeland Security is born out of both tragedy and necessity, out of both tragedy and necessity. And in fact, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary, our 20th birthday. Interpol's 100 years old. The Department of Homeland Security is 20 years old on March 1st, 2023. So just about 2 months ago, President Biden came over to the St. Elizabeth's campus, which is the new DHS headquarters of about 3 or 4 years, and celebrated it with us. I think it's so important and it's so representative and emblematic of how important Interpol is, how important Interpol Washington is, that one of the very, very first official formal acts of the Department of Homeland Security and really the President George W. Bush administration to do is to say, we need to link up the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security on this one key partnership, and in particular around Interpol Washington. Because if we were to achieve the Department of Homeland Security's mission, that with honor and integrity we will safeguard the American people, our homeland, and our values. To be fair, that wasn't quite the mission then. It was formulated over time, but that was certainly the gist and intent of the Department of Homeland Security. What better place to do it than through Interpol Washington? So thanks, Mike. Thanks, Jurgen. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Jolene, for everything you're doing to make sure our partnership stays together. To that, can I have everybody stand who's on the Interpol Washington team? Are they in here? We have some folks in here? I know we've got at least a few. Interpol Washington, there we go. And they're like, I don't understand. I promise we're not gonna make you come up in March, do the pipe and drum. If there's some of you maybe are really good at it. But as they stand up here, let's all give them a round of applause. And I know there's others as well, so Mike, Mark, please pass on our appreciation from the Secretary and me. I thought Lisa, as she always does, did a great job about talking about the evolution of Interpol over the last 100 years. I'm sure the Secretary General will speak to it as well. I'll just do a little bit of an emphasis on there and take back and harken back to a couple of the nuggets that Jolene brought up and that Lisa did as well, which is if you think back to 1923, the interwar period, as many folks know, just think about the fact that it took, this is all pre-Charles Lindbergh and all that, it took 27 hours to fly from New York City to San Diego, 27 hours just to fly. Now, obviously, that's cut down tremendously to 4 or 5 hours, but even then, that meant mail wasn't going to be moving that fast. Lisa spoke about carrier pigeons and about air mail and things of that nature. But of course, we've moved over the last 100 years, and what are the criminal elements? Who are the people who are intending to take nefarious activities against not only the United States of America, but about democratic countries? It's the internet, it's the dark web, it's the different ways that these syndicates work together. And ultimately, just as it was when I was in the United States Army, just as it was when Lisa was the Homeland Security Advisor and I was the Senior Director for Afghanistan and Pakistan, and we were in the global war on terror and we were fighting the terrorists, one of our taglines was, "It takes a network to defeat a network." And again, when I think about Interpol and where you have come over the last 100 years, you have built one of the greatest, most powerful networks of all time, because as Jolene said, peace just doesn't happen. And so, but that wouldn't have happened without Jürgen, your leadership since 2014. If that wouldn't have happened without Interpol Washington, and it certainly wouldn't have happened without scores of Interpol members, whether they were here in DC or throughout the world, as you built up the membership to 195 and now from 20, of which the United States of America was a founding member, to almost 196, as you recently told us. I asked the team to pull some facts for me. I said, look, I know there's this information sharing and data sharing as pretty prolific. I mean, what are we talking about? Because I know the technology works, but what are the numbers? And one of the things they told me is that there are 187 searches per second on the Interpol database, which obviously, if you do the math, that gets out to about 16 million searches per day. And I don't want to do math in public. I'm an Army officer, not a mathematician, so it's a little dangerous. Jolene could have done it because she's a CFO. She does it all the time, I imagine. But 60 million searches per day. So that tells you two things. One is you have created the technological system to allow for that. And the second is you're relevant. Interpol is relevant. People are coming to you constantly looking for the information that they know you'll be able to provide. And it will be, Lisa gave some great examples, Jolene did as well. You know, it might be about somebody that we want to know is happening in Kazakhstan, and there's an orange notice on them. Perhaps it's somebody who's trying to track down, honestly, nefarious activity that is linked to their fingerprints, the biometrics, or perhaps it's all around finding out whether or not drug smugglers are indeed being successful in being able to cross international and national boundaries, of which we are seeing, unfortunately, all too often. Now, what are the threats that we're seeing today, and of which, of course, Interpol is helping us out with? Within the Department of Homeland Security, it's not a competition, no, maybe it is, but it is Department of Homeland Security, quite honestly, and it's just simply by scale. Just by the number of law enforcement officers we have, about 92,000 in total when you come across the entire Department of Homeland Security enterprise. We are literally the biggest users of the Interpol database within the United States government. And again, that's just certainly by the numbers of folks who we have in law enforcement, 1811 type positions. Customs and Border Protection, obviously, are running this information constantly over our ports of entry. The Transportation Security Administration is reviewing driver's license. Lisa talked about facial recognition. We're using that software as well. Homeland Security Investigations, where Mark Zimmerman and many, many others in this room, Carmen as well from my team as a detailee right now, use that, in particular around searching for intellectual property. And that's just on the law enforcement side. I think from a humanitarian side, we did this sort of round robin, a poll from the different components, and FEMA actually raised their hand and said, sir, we use Interpol as well for DNA samples to identify missing persons and also to reunite family members, which is pretty considerable. So at the end of the day, Interpol was born out of this concept that through cooperation, through collaboration, we as an organization, and so I'm wearing the pin, the Interpol Washington pin, that we as an organization, if we were to cooperate, if we were to collaborate, if we were to let go of some of our national equities and say what's most important is peace, and not just national peace, but global peace, is that we would come together. What does the next 100 years bring? Certainly, one more year of Mike Hughes, thumbs up. 4 more years of Mark Zimmerman, thumbs up. I won't even try to put it on you. You're so, but what's the next 100 years going to bring? Unfortunately, and as being a combat veteran of 3 tours in Iraq, I've seen evil in the eye, as many of you have. I'm a clear-eyed realist. The challenges are going to get harder. The threats are only going to become more nefarious and, quite honestly, effective. And so, therefore, it takes a network to defeat a network. I know Interpol's up to the task. I know Interpol Washington is up to the task. It's going to be hard, but we will adapt and overcome. Not only will we must. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It is now my genuine pleasure and privilege to introduce you to the Secretary General of Interpol, a man whom I first met in Willemstad, Curaçao, about 10 years ago. I was melting just crossing the street from the hotel to the meeting venue where we were holding the Interpol Americas Region Conference. He was out for an exercise run, and I just thought, this man has a lot of staying power, very energetic, a great leader indeed. Jürgen Stark was elected Secretary General of Interpol in November 2014 at the 83rd Interpol General Assembly in Monaco. In October 2019, he was elected to a second 5-year term. His more than 40 years of experience in policing includes service as Vice President of the BKA, the German Federal Police, the German Vice President for Europe on Interpol's Executive Committee, head of the Institute of Law Enforcement Studies and Training at the BKA, and president of the University of Applied Police Science in Saxony-Anhalt. In addition, he is a 2010 graduate of the FBI National Executive Institute. As Secretary General, he oversees the day-to-day work of international police cooperation and implements the decisions of Interpol's General Assembly and Executive Committee. During his tenure as Secretary General, he has initiated changes in 4 key areas: to improve core business services to police, establish strong partnerships, embrace innovation, and strengthen the organization's governance structures and mechanisms. In addition, he established 3 global programs that today guide all of Interpol's policing activities: counterterrorism, organized and emerging crime, and cybercrime. Since first being elected in 2014, Secretary General Stark has overseen the creation of a specialized task force to review requests for Interpol Red Notices, a new statute for the Commission for the Control of Interpol's Files, a review of the legal framework around the organization's governing bodies, and a change in the organization's funding model to focus more on public sector contributions. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Secretary General Jürgen Stark.
Thank you, Skip. I want to thank also Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco for her presence here today. Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security, Tien, congratulations for the 20th anniversary of your agency. Acting Assistant Attorney General for Administration, Lauria. Executive Committee Delegate for the Americas and Director of Interpol Washington, Mike Hughes. Former US NCB directors, former Executive Committee members, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is a great honor to be here with you today to celebrate Interpol's centenary in this magnificent Great Hall. When Main Justice was built during the Great Depression, Interpol indeed was still in its infancy. I look around at the beautiful Art Deco fixtures and I'm struck by the history of this room, by the ceremonies, the events, the proceedings which have taken place here. As I stand this afternoon between the statues of the Majesty of Justice and the Spirit of Justice, I think of the men and women who have spoken here before us, of their calling, the same as ours, to apply the rule of law and to protect their people and our people, innocent citizens all around the world. That quest to ensure justice and its fair and effective administration is very much alive today, a century since Interpol was first created in Vienna. It is kept alive by the threats to the peace of our communities, stretching across borders, regions, and, of course, more and more into cyberspace. And is kept alive by what Interpol and the United States are achieving together in this field. As Attorney General Garland said at the annual conference of the International Association of Chiefs of Police a few months ago, when we work together as partners, we make real differences in our communities. In every message through our systems, in every search in our databases, in every new US agency and partner accessing critical information. It is critical information seized by the United States from criminal communications, leading to the arrest of one of the 'Ndrangheta's most powerful cocaine brokers. It is the US Marshal bringing yet another fugitive to face justice and giving closure to victims. It is the Customs and Border Protection Officer detecting a threat before it reaches US soil, protecting the security of the US homeland. It is the FBI analyst turning battlefield intelligence into actionable law enforcement information against foreign terrorist fighters. It is the cyber tip line from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children rescuing a child thousands of miles away through the Interpol Child Sexual Exploitation Database. It is the State Department's cable sent before a UN Security Council meeting calling other nations to support and rely on Interpol to make the world safer. These are snapshots of the mission and values that brought Interpol and the United States of America together, of what has held us together every day ever since. As Attorney General Edward Levy said in this very room in 1977, these are goals which can never be won for all time. They must always be won anew. Indeed, the values and principles that make our operational successes possible must be nurtured and protected for those who will follow us. Since the beginning of my mandate as Secretary General, I have worked to make Interpol a more robust organization, able to deliver in support of its member countries, and able to protect and strengthen its foundation no matter what is to come. Foundations like the common spirit shared by law enforcement globally of any nationality, uniform, and beliefs against those who have chosen crime over peace. Or the shared recognition of Interpol as a neutral organization that respects the rule of law in every single action. Or processes such as the robust, systematic review of each red notice and wanted person alert, ensuring compliance with our rules and with our regulations. Or the strengthening of the mandate and resources of the Independent Commission for the Control of Interpol Files to provide an effective remedy to individual subjects of data processing via Interpol. And I would like to recognize the role of the chair of the Commission for the Control of Interpol Files, Teresa McHenry, who is amongst us here today. Thank you for your work. When repeated non-compliance occurs, preventive and corrective measures are applied to those member countries to protect the integrity of our channels. These elements are the essence of the trust that Interpol member countries have placed in the organization. Trust that a piece of information will make it to the other side in time for that particular arrest, or for that life be saved without compromising the integrity of that information or the human rights of the individuals involved. And trust which must be cherished and nurtured as we work together to make Interpol even stronger. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm grateful to everyone who made this splendid event possible, and to all of you who took the time to come and mark this occasion with us. Most of all, I am grateful for the support and engagement of the United States of America in Interpol's work. You have been with Interpol throughout the last 100 years. We have worked together to prevent the movement of foreign terrorist fighters, to protect the world's forests and wildlife, to stem nuclear, radiological, chemical, and explosive threats, and to make major international ports and shipping lanes more secure, among many other dangers. The records your agency have entrusted Interpol with have led to the arrests of dangerous perpetrators and the rescue of victims around the world. This includes the pioneering data sharing of foreign terrorist fighters' identifiers under Interpol's military to law enforcement information exchange, in short, MILEX. The checks you run on our databases, John, as you said, sometimes even more than 200 million this year alone, and 200 per second alone, strengthen the security of your homeland. The technical assistance you provide to border authorities abroad in high-risk areas through projects such as Terminus and Gemini builds security beyond those borders. The strong support you have voiced for Interpol in high-level international fora has also opened possibilities for further multilateral cooperation and ultimately more operational, tangible results. I will continue to rely on the voice of the United States government to advocate for the role Interpol plays in international police cooperation, especially when it is attacked due to a lack of awareness of its mandate, its rules, or simply its reality. As Professor Mathieu de Flem of the University of South Carolina wrote very recently, Interpol is arguably the most discussed and least understood international police organization. Ladies and gentlemen, this needs to change. We owe it to those relying on Interpol every day to make a difference in the field. Finally, as I approach the end of my mandate, not tomorrow, but in 1.5 years from now, it is our continued support that will ensure that Interpol's processes and safeguards remain robust, alive, and respected under future leadership. That support includes the exceptional talent the United States shares with us. Over the last century, Interpol has benefited from the expertise and skills of many seconded officers from the United States, some of whom I'm delighted to see here today, and the role of my General Counsel, Mary Rodriguez, was already recognized. We have also been guided and advised by American Executive Committee members over the years, including, yes, Jolene Lauria, who so capably chairs our advisory group on financial matters, and now Mike Hughes. In his other capacity as director of our National Central Bureau in Washington, Mr. Hughes has led his excellent team from strength to strength. The USNCB is known in our global policing community for its professionalism and its determination. It is a kind of city on a hill and a beacon for effective cooperation amongst NCBs all around the world. Our bureau in Washington is key to connecting international law enforcement with US partners, Justice, Homeland Security, the Department of State, Defense, Energy, as well as the Agency for International Development, the Patent and Trademark Office, and the Forest Service, along with many others. It is tremendous to see former USNCB directors here today. Each of you has played an important part in building and consolidating our relationship over the decades. I'm particularly glad to see Mr. Quinones, who became the first Interpol Bureau Chief in 1969 upon leaving the White House Secret Service detail, where he served Presidents Kennedy, Johnson, and Eisenhower. And it is President Eisenhower whom I wish to quote in closing. In a message to Interpol's General Assembly in 1960 at the State Department building in Foggy Bottom, he said, "The forces of crime are constantly seeking to exploit humanity. Standing against these forces are the servants of law and order. By working together in mutual purpose around the world, these upholders of law and order shall prevail." Thank you to everyone here who has been a part of this incredible Interpol story. May we and those who will follow us continue to prevail against the forces of crime as we enter our next century. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary General. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce Michael A. Hughes, Director of Interpol Washington, the United States National Central Bureau. On May 19, 2021, Mike Hughes was appointed as Director of Interpol Washington, the USNCB. As Director, he acts on behalf of the Attorney General of the United States as its representative to Interpol. In this capacity, he leads the U.S. government's efforts to share and exchange international criminal intelligence and investigative information across the Interpol communications platform in support of domestic and international law enforcement and border security operations around the globe. In addition, Director Hughes currently serves on Interpol's Executive Committee, where he plays a key role in overall Interpol policy and programs as a delegate for the Americas region. Director Hughes has more than 30 years of experience in the U.S. Marshals Service, beginning his career as a deputy director in 1991. He worked in an array of assignments, including criminal investigations, protective operations, court security, human resources, asset forfeiture, and tactical operations. Director Hughes also served as the U.S. Marshal for the Superior Court of the District of Columbia from 2011 to 2018. Mr. Hughes has served in an executive capacity on many criminal justice task forces and academic committees, including the Washington-Baltimore High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Task Force, the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, and the American University's School of Public Affairs Key Executive Program. In 2003, he was selected as a legislative fellow and served in a U.S. Senate office as an advisor on policy issues in areas including criminal justice, law enforcement, the judiciary, and civil rights. Ladies and gentlemen, the Director of Interpol Washington, Mr. Michael A. Hughes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Secretary General Stock, for being with us here today and for your remarks with us today. They were very thoughtful and from the heart, and we appreciate that. During your time as Secretary General, you have brought Interpol to new heights and better equipped our 195 member countries with the means and abilities to detect and interdict crimes around the globe. So thank you for that. And thank you to our Deputy Attorney General, Ms. Lisa Monaco, for her leadership here at the Department of Justice, and to you, Deputy Secretary Johnson, for all your support. You both have been steadfast supporters of our Interpol mission, and it is with your support and confidence that we're able to have so much success, so thank you. Acting Assistant Attorney General and former Interpol Executive Committee member, Ms. Jolene Loria. Your ongoing commitment to Interpol has been vital in adding value to our domestic and international partnerships and missions, so thank you for that. There are so many people here today to thank. I see Teresa McHenry, who was mentioned, Chair for the Commission of Control of Interpol Files, Ms. Mary Rodriguez, General Counsel for Interpol Washington. I see former Director Salzgeber here and many other former directors. Thanks for being here. Tabitha, thanks for that excellent rendition of our Star-Spangled Banner. Thank you so much. And of course, U.S. Marshal Service Director Ron Davis, thank you for being here and for the pipes and drums. Prince George's County Honor Guard, always with us, always supporting us, so thank you. There are so many important people in this room who have made a positive impact on Interpol work that we'd be here all day if I had to recognize everybody. So I'll just say thank you to everyone, from all the leaders in DOJ, DHS, other agencies, former Interpol Washington directors, executive committee members, international partners. I see a lot of you folks out there as well, all of our colleagues and friends, and all the personnel. Really, I mostly want to say thank you to the personnel of Interpol Washington. We had you all stand up before, but thank you for the work that you do each and every day. We're all here to celebrate Interpol's 100-year anniversary, and we thank you for that. It's an honor to address this distinguished audience on such a monumentous occasion. It's an even greater honor to represent the men and women of Interpol Washington, who stand watch each and every day to keep our country safe and to build a better world. As Director of Interpol Washington, and as one of the 13 elective executive committee members, I see the great work each and every day of Interpol in fighting all forms of transnational crime and terrorism. Since its founding in 1923, Interpol has been instrumental in promoting global law enforcement cooperation and fighting transnational crime. But today's criminals have since evolved. They are increasingly anonymous, increasingly transnational, and increasingly dangerous. Thanks to Interpol, 100 years later, information on the worst of the worst transnational criminals and terrorists from anywhere in the world can be shared directly with frontline police officers, investigators, and border security agents in any one of our over 18,000 plus police agencies across the United States. And as part of Interpol's network, we have a direct communication with all of our other member countries to exchange vital information that is crucial to our public safety and national security. At Interpol Washington, we're proud to be at the forefront of this effort. Our team of dedicated professionals work tirelessly every day to support our partners across the United States and around the world, leveraging cutting-edge technology and intelligence sharing to disrupt transnational crime and protect our communities. The United States realizes the value of Interpol network, and as such continues with our strong engagement in various Interpol projects. You have heard many examples of Interpol successes in combating transnational crimes, but the secret to the organization's success is our ability to compile and exchange actionable information in all of our Interpol 195 member countries. Realizing this, the United States has been leading many member country capacity building projects with Interpol. For instance, through Project Terminus and Project Gemini, we're helping to extend Interpol's I-247 secure global police communication system to high-risk countries around the world. This helps deliver solid, actionable criminal intelligence in a secure manner to countries where it's needed most. These programs provide certain member country national central bureaus with updated equipment to access Interpol data, and our personnel provide training to our partners to assist them to effectively utilize Interpol connectivity at border control points of entry in other areas. This helps strengthen the ability of law enforcement and border security agencies to detect and interdict the illicit international travel of transnational criminals as well as foreign terrorist fighters. This has proven to be quite effective. For instance, in Indonesia, we began as a test case a few years back. They have since enabled connectivity to Interpol data to and from over 170 ports of entry. Also in Nigeria, we have been successful in adding over 147,000 critical Nigerian records to the Interpol database within the first hour of implementation, and those numbers continue to grow. And following Project Terminus efforts in Maldives, we're able to increase their queries of Interpol information by nearly 300%. Panama recently, the number of stolen and lost travel documents entered into the Interpol holdings increased by nearly 50,000 records. These are significant successes that benefit the United States and all member countries. With information sharing at the heart of Interpol, we must continue to ensure connectivity of member countries to combat all transnational crime and terrorism. Interpol Washington is one of the Department of Justice's 5 law enforcement components, and the key to the success of our agency is our people. We're very proud of the diverse workforce consisting of extremely talented full-time employees, other agency detailees from across the government, and contractors. This mix of experience and skill makes Interpol Washington very effective in providing top-notch service to many customers and stakeholders across the United States and around the world. The success of Interpol Washington is due to the incredible people, the true backbone of our agency, working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year, to ensure that all of our missions are accomplished. I thank all of our Interpol Washington personnel, many of them whom are here today, and all of the personnel who worked diligently to put together this Interpol 100-year commemoration ceremony. Let's have a round of applause for all of them. We have made many advances and have had many successes throughout Interpol's 100 years, but the work is far from over. As transnational criminals and terrorists continue to evolve, we must remain vigilant and adaptive in our law enforcement response. Now, more than ever, we must continue to work together, domestically and internationally, and remain committed to building strong partnerships, harnessing the power of ever-changing technology, and investing in our people to ensure that we could stay ahead of the criminals and terrorists that threaten our communities. We need to ensure that our Interpol organization remains faithful to its foundational principles of respect for human rights, the rule of law, and neutrality by continuing to strengthen the governance of the organization and ensuring strong leadership values that values democracy. As we sit here in the Great Hall of Justice, the Robert F. Kennedy Building, I'm reminded of his words. The purpose of life is to contribute in some way to making things better. Everyone in this room is contributing to making things better, even by celebrating this 100-year Interpol milestone. Your presence here builds the bridges, builds the relationships, and builds the partnerships that advances our missions in countless ways. I hope you will walk out of these doors today inspired by what international police partnerships and collaborations do to keep our families, our communities, our country, and the world safe. On behalf of the men and women of Interpol Washington, I want to express my deepest gratitude to all of our partners here in the United States and around the world for your unwavering support and continued collaboration. Together, we have accomplished much over the past century, and I am confident that we will continue to make progress in the years to come. Thank you once again for the privilege of speaking to you here today and for your ongoing dedication to the cause of global security and justice. Happy one-year anniversary, Interpol. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hughes. It appears that I have no pages left in my binder, which tells me that this part of the ceremony and commemoration are concluded. We invite you to join us upstairs on the 7th floor for refreshment. Thank you very much for your time and attention here today. Please circulate, greet each other, talk about cooperation, because that is the essence of what we do as Interpol. Thank you very much.